Phil Town begins Chapter 1 by attacking 3 widely held myths that keep ordinary people from getting the returns they need for a secure retirement. He opens with a simple, vivid comparison. Many people put their money into 10-year U.S. Treasury bonds, the classic, safe investment, and accept a return of roughly 4%. The problem, he points out, is that 4% barely outpaces inflation. It takes nearly 2 decades to double your money, and most of that gain is eaten by higher prices. People cling to safety but confuse low volatility with real financial security. To explain why higher returns aren't automatically much riskier, Town uses a driving analogy. Driving from point A to B is generally safe when an experienced driver is at the wheel. The trip becomes risky when an inexperienced 11-year-old is put behind the wheel. The point: risk is not just about the return target, it's about who is driving your money. If you know what you're doing, you can seek higher returns without taking blind chances. That's the essence of rule number 1 investing. Know what you're doing so you don't lose money. Town next takes aim at mutual funds. He calls the mutual fund industry a scam in the sense that most actively managed funds fail to beat the market after fees. Fund managers are often paid big fees to do something that, historically, only a tiny fraction have achieved consistently. He cites the disturbing fact that a very small percentage of funds outperform benchmarks over long periods, and he reminds us of stories, like a monkey beating professional managers, that dramatize how little edge many fund shops truly offer. The essential message: handing your savings to a fund manager is often like giving your keys to that inexperienced driver. From there, he lays out the 3 myths of investing that the chapter unmasks. 1. You have to be an expert to manage money. Town says this is false today because the internet and cheap tools put data and calculators into everyone's hands. With straightforward instruction and a little practice, you can manage your own money. He promises the rule number 1 system takes as little as 15 minutes a week once learned. 2. You can't beat the market. Town confronts efficient market theory head-on. Efficient market theory argues prices always reflect all known information, so bargains shouldn't exist. Town replies with Benjamin Graham and Warren Buffett's long record. Investors who use the same value-oriented principles have beaten the market for decades. He emphasizes that rule number 1, investors look for mispricings, real bargains, and compounding returns from those opportunities. 3. The best way to minimize risk is to diversify and hold forever. Diversify and hold is the conventional advice, but Town points out long stretches of market stagnation. For example, decades when the Dow barely gained, during which diversified buy and hold investors earned almost nothing. He argues that broad diversification guarantees you the market's return, good or bad, while rule number 1, investors concentrate on a few truly understood businesses bought at attractive prices. Town also dismantles 2 related ideas: dollar cost averaging and the supposed superiority of real estate. He shows dollar cost averaging isn't a savior in prolonged sideways or falling markets. If the market keeps sliding, you either have to keep buying into losses or accept low returns. On real estate, he runs a numerical example comparing a leveraged rental house that averages about a 10 to 11% 30-year return with a rule number 1 investor who targets 15% returns on stocks. Over 30 years, the difference compounds dramatically. The same starting capital, if invested with a consistent 15% return, can produce multiple times the wealth of average real estate. The point is not to demonize property, only to show that rule number 1 returns, when achieved without losing principal, change retirement math in a big way. Town returns to the core rule number 1 message: don't lose money. He explains the brutal math of losses. A 50% loss requires a 100% gain to recover. An 80% loss needs a 400% gain. Protecting your capital is essential to compounding. To make this concrete, he tells the story of Doug and Susan Connolly, a middle-income couple with modest savings. If they invest conservatively at 4%, they will be far short at retirement. Using rule number 1 to earn 15% could turn the same contributions into an order of magnitude larger nest egg. He also recounts cautionary tales. Enron employees wiped out, an investor who grew a nest egg and lost it by doubling down, showing how a single big loss can permanently alter retirement prospects. Finally, Town promises this approach is learnable. Basic calculations, pattern recognition, and a disciplined framework are all you need. The combination of timeless value ideas from Graham and Buffett, modern tools and data on the internet, and the small investor advantage of being nimble creates a practical way for ordinary people to aim for 15% plus returns with surprisingly low risk. Rule number 1 is framed as a method, not a get-rich-quick scheme. Find wonderful companies, buy them at attractive prices, think buy $1 of value for 50 cents, and avoid catastrophic losses. The chapter closes with a direct question to the listener. If you could reasonably retire in 10 to 20 years with 15 minutes a week of work and less risk than you face today, wouldn't you want to learn how? That promise, higher returns, controlled risk, modest time commitment, is the hook for the rest of the book.